Hello, welcome back to How to RPG. Today it's all about combat. Basic rules of combat. I thought this would be a good topic. I'm hoping that you will enjoy what I have for you. I'm going to be pulling for today from Dungeons and Dragons 5e, from 4e, 3.5. I'm still waiting on books for Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, First Ed Edition and Second Ed Edition, and I will be also pulling from the Star Wars Saga role-playing game, and I'll probably be pulling from other game systems that I don't have the books for, but there's a lot going on, so I want to sort of expand on this topic. Now, for today, the intention is to show you behind the scenes, so my suggestion is get yourself comfortable, sit back, get some food, some drink, make sure you are ready for quite a bit of information. I'm going to show you everything that I've done in the past, and I'm going to show you how I'm going to sort of expand on it. There's also an opportunity to help expand on that topic as well. So put your 2 cents in. That's what the chat is for. I'm going to put up a poll. What is missing from role-playing game combat? And I have some options for you to select from. I can only put in 4. And I can assure you right now, some of them are done in jest and some of them are not done in jest. Which ones you discover are the ones I've done in jest, it really doesn't matter. It's up to you how you respond. Anyway, okay, so let's crack into this and get on with the show for today. Hi, welcome to How to RPG. My name is Fred Wheeler. And today we're going to talk about combat, basic combat. Not necessarily the complex aspects of combat, because I will do that in the future, but not today. Just the basic stuff. And so what I want to do is I want to go over some of the information that I've put together in the past for Dungeons and Dragons 5e. Rather than looking at another system, I'm going to look at 5e, and then I'm going to sort of break it down a little bit, and then what I'm going to do from there is we're going to sort of have it bleed out or expand into other systems or versions of D&D or other role-playing games. A lot of these mechanics will bleed into Pathfinder as well, Star Wars Saga, things like that. But I thought it would be nice if I could show you what I have. And hello, Ugly Weirdo. This is a slightly different format. What I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the panels that I have before I make the adjustments, and then I'm going to make those adjustments. Okay, because I'm not going to destroy it. I'm just going to adjust it so that it has a slightly different purpose. And I just need to make sure my head is in the right place. Is my head in the right place? Who knows? Let's try again. If I need to make this larger, the text or the panel, you'll need to let me know and I will do that. Okay, all right, so transitioning over, this is what I have for you today. This here is my Google Slides. These are the Google Slides that I made for Dungeons and Dragons 5e and the basics around combat. As you can see, I've got my first opening panel, I've got my overview that covers the things that I'm going to talk about. I have some objectives. I've got D&D Beyond on here, but I'm going to take that out. Obviously, combat initiative or turn order. We've got the initiative check. We've got types of actions broken down. We've got attack types. We've got casting spells, the dash action, the disengage action, the dodge action, the help action, the search action. There's a lot of actions. There's the use an object action, and then some miscellaneous. So those are all the slides that I created quite a while back for this. These are some of the memes that I selected. Leroy Jenkins was too obvious a choice for me. And then role-playing sessions. Yeah, okay, we're going to fight. Dr. Pepper and min-maxing. Yes. I guess even though I play as a character more often than not, I'm not really a min-maxer. So yes, the opportunity to take the mickey out of it is pretty strong, actually. But anyway, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure my phone is going. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a copy of each of these, not just the slideshow, but also my Google Doc. So I have a Google Doc. These are the notes that I would read from. Okay, these basically give all the information that I thought was important. This is going to have to definitely be upgraded because I'm going to add in a lot of additional information, and it's so hot in my office I'm going to have to open the door. There's no way I can survive if I don't. It's becoming a bit too much, so I'm going to open my door, and then we'll get into this. And feel free to sort of weigh in on the topic. I'm fine with that. Sometimes some of the people have, I guess, more experience maybe with role-playing games than I do, and want to sort of add in a few things. I may have missed something as I go through this. It's all very possible. So yes, I'm going to open the door. I know people like the hat, but it's actually really warm today. After that cyclone, it's gotten so hot, I'm throwing it away. Okay, it's going down on the floor so that I can actually relax a little bit. Now, first off, what I'll do is I will make a copy of this because I am probably going to do something like that. That will probably make it a lot easier for me. And we go copy, and I go over here, and then we make a copy of this. That will be the easiest way. Entire presentation. I don't want to destroy it, remember. I am just trying to adjust it. And so that's the bit that we'll take out. And we're calling it Tabletop Role-Playing Game Rules. And we need to be specific about what we're covering. We're covering basic combat mechanics. And next week I'll be covering complex combat mechanics. And then you're probably wondering what happens once you've done all of this. Well, I'm going to have to go through and tidy up all the slides and all the Google documents and so forth. Whether I do that live or whether I do that on my own time, which there is no such thing as, we'll see. I'm honestly not too sure at this present time. But the intention is that we go back to demonstration. So it will happen. Okay, so I believe that is the new file we're going to create. Okay, there we go. All right, so I've got it right. Tabletop, That looks about like the same sort of format as the other one, so that's good. And we just need to just turn off and get rid of the D&D 5e one so we don't mess with it. And I will do the same thing with the Google Doc, which is going to go down here, make a copy, and we need to make sure I take out this bit. Come on. Top center, roughly vertical. Your head seems in proper order. Thank you very much. Yes, you can see the top of my head. Isn't it a wonderful view? And there is that. That's in. And then it is basic combat mechanics. Okay. Now I'm going to be working on essentially what I would say is a reversed engineered or a clone of Dungeons & Dragons 5e and 4e and 3.5 and Advanced Dungeons & Dragons and Basic Dungeons & Dragons and Pathfinder tomorrow in a live stream. So this sort of transitions quite nicely over into that in many respects, but they are still separate. Right, so make that copy. I believe that'll work. And did it come out the way I wanted? It did come out the way I wanted. I can close this up so I don't mess with it. And this is the core rules that I have made a copy of, so we can close that. Okay. All right, good. Done. So the first thing you're probably wondering is, what am I actually needing to change here? Well, as it happens, not actually that much. It might be pretty obvious right now that there's very little that needs to be removed from this to make it generic for any system, or at least a D20 system. Although I'm not necessarily saying that this is going to be for a D20 system, but it's probably going to be easiest as if it's described as for a D20 system. But I don't know that that's necessarily necessary for this part of it. I'm trying to open it up to, I guess, other systems outside of just D20s, because D20 is probably quite difficult for some people to find, whereas for others it's probably very, very simple to find. So yeah, anyway, right, I just want to make sure I got that right. So we take out Dungeons and Dragons, and we're going to put in our new title, which I should be able to cut and paste without formatting. That was easy. That looks right. My slide looks good. Okay, all right, just making sure I got my format exactly the same. Yeah, format is the same. Okay, good. I'm going to get rid of the image because it's Dungeons and Dragons. I actually have an image for this, which I'm going to transpose right now. For those of you who are wondering what I'm using, I'm actually just using a golden D20 dice, which I found. Hello, Talking Wrench. Yes. How's it going, Overboard? Overboard is a patron and a moderator, also has a YouTube channel that covers miniatures and terrain and reviews, so you should go and check him out. Does a lot of stuff that other people don't do. You can hear cicadas in the background, people, okay? That's what's going on. They're very happy today. Now, back with the glasses. The transition from chat to the other stuff is more difficult than I thought it would be, but here we go. Right, there we go. This is the image that I had found and I'm using, and it's in high 4K, so that makes the big difference in terms of how I can use it. Right, there we go. So let's plant that. That'll just make it easier for me to find these files later, and so once that's done, we just need to order it and send it to the back. Ta-da! Almost knocked over a lamp. Okay, so going through here, we're going to take out this. This is belonging to Wizards of the Coast. And I want to put this in as... Oh, this is the question. Yes, we'll just use a black strip for now. Copy, and then transfer that over as a place marker. And fiddle with this later. Alright, so there are just a few things I want to do in terms of overview. So combat initiative is fine for those people who understand what the concept of initiative is. But if you say combat turn order, it actually is probably easier for people to understand. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to put in combat turn order, because that's actually much easier for somebody to understand. Types of actions, we kind of going to break them down. The types of actions that games have tend to fall into the same sort of brackets, so that's not an issue. Weapon and I guess unarmed strikes, unarmed attacks, and unarmed attacks. We'll do that. Casting a spell, dash and disengage. Now, moving. It's actually, what I really want to say here is I want to say moving. Because this is very much around movement. So I'm going to turn this into movement. And movement is broken up into a couple of different things. So may need to just jump into here and make sure that I make the adjustments here as well. Turn order, combat turn order. We'll do that now. Just so that I remember. Combat turn order. How is everybody doing? Is everybody having a good time with their games? Is everything going well? Tighten up, tighten up. Ah, dear. Alright, so I've got that bit there. And types of actions, we've got, that's not going to change. Types of actions is going to sit pretty much the same. And then I'll break that down into more detail than I have in the past. Attack actions. Attack types. Now I called it attack types. And maybe that's a better description of it. Attack types may actually be a better description of what I'm trying to say there. Ranged, thrown, unarmed. Attack types. Yeah, let's do that. It's a better phrasing, I think. And then casting spell sits again in about the same place. We're going to leave it as that. Movement. Now I've taken movement to represent dash, disengage, but it actually needs to fall under movement again as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this and I'll go movement, and what is the best way? I've done a format that is non-italic, but it's bold and underlined. So bold, underline, with the colon, and then underneath we will do the other things we'll put in as numbers, and then dodge, help here. Okay, I think that's probably a better way of doing this. So I'll just bear with me as I make some slight adjustments here, and italic, and I will just go number this. Where are we? There. And do the same. There. One of the things I noticed that I didn't talk about movement with this when I was doing the presentation. I talked about dash and disengage as actions in combat. But in combat you move, and I don't really talk about moving. Okay, so moving. We need to talk more about moving in combat. So moving and movement. Okay, we have got to fill that out a little bit. Okay, so reorganize that way. That's fine. Go back to here with the overview, movement, help, and dodge. Now, help and dodge. These are concepts that definitely they fall into their own brackets, so they do need to be their own thing. And disengage and dodge and dash are essentially concepts of run and I don't know how else would you describe disengage, because disengage it's more like retreat. Retreat. Okay, we'll talk about that more. Okay, so dodge needs to have its own thing and be its own topic, because dodge falls under lots of other things as well. So we will do that now. Breaking it down into smaller bits provides versatility 5e lacked. Yes, so Ugly Weirdo, it's not just breaking it down for 5e, but it's breaking it down in terms of all role-playing games, because all role-playing games generally use the same meta, the same engine to a large extent, because it's based off, they try to base a lot of stuff off an abstract version of the real world. It's not the real world, because you can't do that. That's not possible. Dodge. Now, what's another word for dodge? Dodge. It'll come to me. I know what I need to do with help, though. Yeah, I just want it step by steps. So help or aid. Okay, so we'll give them their own thing. Search. So one of the things I'm going to say right now is something like dodge. It's nice to have a concept and a mechanic for dodge in combat to make it harder for you to be hit. That's what I wanted to put down. Dodge and full defense. Defense. It's not block. That's different. And that's actually probably something I want to talk about as well. So dodge, block, and full... Is it full defense? 3.5. I think it was called full defense. If anybody remembers, I think it was full defense. These are all concepts, and they use the same sort of mechanics behind them. Do you know what I mean? Very, very similar. Okay, so we'll come back to that. So I want to talk about that. Help and aid. Aid. That sounds bad. And explosion. Or teamwork. Now that's teamwork is actually going to fall under group stuff, but this is actually teamwork. So let's do it teamwork. Teamwork. It sort of falls under group checks, but I can refer to that as we go through there. So I want to put this all together. Search. Now, search is one of the most frustrating concepts in combat, because it's the one thing you really don't want to do. It's the thing you wind up doing because you don't know how to find something, right? And searching in a combat usually means that you're not going to be able to do things that you want to do, which is if you're having to fight, you want to attack or you want to cast a spell. It's almost British English, thank you. It's almost a pointless activity to have there, because anytime you use it, you feel like you've almost wasted your time. And 5e has it spelled out there for a very specific reason, but it's almost always considered a waste of your time, and yet it exists in games. It certainly exists in 5e. We'll look back at some of the older games to see if it exists there. It may well do exist there. Use an object. Use an object has been around for a long time. Use an object. Requires, and so those using an object. Okay, so I think that's broken it down into all the little bits and pieces that I want to talk about. So let's just make sure. Help, teamwork. I'm going to just list this as teamwork, because that's what it is. Dodge or defense. Dodge, defense. Do I want to put anything else there? No, not really. It'll do. Dodge will do. Search and using an object. And search can probably go under also investigation. Searching. Or investigating. Really, that's what it falls under, so let's put it there. I think that's done it fine. I think we've got all the bits and pieces we needed for that slide. Good, sweet, awesome. Now, if anybody remembers any rules that that sort of fall under basic combat that I may have missed or forgotten, remind me, because I will go through this stuff, but I will forget stuff. Okay, evade. Thank you, ugly weirdo. Another good, yes, evade. Have I come across a game system that uses the word evade? Evade. Dodge, evade. Yes, but you're right. Dodgy Duke. Dodgy Duke lets you replace dice with adjectives. Oh, okay. Notice and tell. Notice and tell would be useful as someone like a bonus of partial action. Search can be take a looky loo. Notice. Yes, I'm not too sure if there are too many systems that use notice, but I'm going to put it in brackets for now, because that's essentially the same concept, isn't it? Investigate, search. It's the same sort of stuff, but a couple of different words to represent it doesn't help. Does help. I think it would be useful. All of this example stuff I'm going to get rid of, because it's not going to be useful to us in the slightest. Why have I got a note down here? How does Booming Blade work with Divine Smite? Oh, somebody asked me a really curly question I didn't really know the answer to. That's what it is, and I have never got back to it. But I won't take it away. It's still there. Okay, so I think we're going to go through our slides now until I'm ready to do anything else. This here is pain, I have to say. So this image here is not Wizards of the Coast, so I'll leave it. I'm going to get rid of D&D Beyond. I don't want to look at that too much right now. So disappear. And there. Just wanted to point out that the 5e tools on the website, 5e tools, it has a monster builder as well. For those of you, I should have guessed that it did. It had a challenge rating calculator. So if you're looking for another monster builder or other tools, you'll probably find them there. Yeah. Okay. Description of threatening monster. So we're going to go here. The image is fine. I'm happy with that. The image can stay, that little meme. What we'll do here is we'll take that out though. And instead, we're going to use language that's a bit more user-friendly. Combat turn order. Bam. What did happen there? That was weird. Undo. Undo. Okay, so why is it so large? Have I missed something? Turn. Oh, it's just was it a glitch? Strange. All right. Okay, got it. Turn order. We'll go through this in a second. Notice, tell, search. Notice and tell is the combat application of search, investigate, whatever. Seeing as searching takes minutes, it isn't really useful in combat as is. That's right, yeah. Because search and investigate take time, they're not useful in combat. You're a very good point, ugly weirdo. And actually, I will make a note here about that as it happens, because you do make a good point that I don't think I've written in here. All I did with this is try to give people 5e rules. So searching or investigating takes time and usually is not very helpful in combat, but is vital outside of combat. That's really where its real use is. But you make a good point, ugly weirdo. It's there. You are definitely helping. You are definitely helping. It's a good point, and I did mention it, and you've just mentioned it in there, and I should have written it down. But then, of course, a lot of things flow through my brain as I'm doing this. Use an object is another big problem in a combat situation, because again, it often falls into the category as, is it really that useful to you? I guess the biggest issue that comes out of this, I'm all over the place. I'm going to apologize now, people. My mind is jumping back and forth from the Google Doc to the Google slide, and I guess while it's percolating through my mind, I'm going to write it down. Okay, so I apologize for jumping here, there, and everywhere. One of the things that keeps coming up in 5e, but also is an issue when you are dealing with other games, whether they be Dungeons and Dragons or so forth, is drawing a weapon and stowing a weapon, and how many times can you do that during your turn? Now, currently, 1D&D is looking at kind of decoupling that. There can be issues around what is reasonable to do on one turn, on one player turn. Such as draw or sheath, stow a weapon. I'll put a big question mark there, we'll come back to that. Who have we got here? Mac, astronomer. Hello, Mac, how are you? Search or investigate is dependent on how dynamic the environment is. Sometimes you are in combat, but you need to discover some sort of key to defeat your opponent. And that's certainly that's very niche. Certainly, I don't disagree with you. But ultimately, most of the time, if your task is to search to find something in combat, it's usually an alternative objective, which can work quite nicely. The only problem is that it depends. It falls still into the same bracket as that searching, investigating in a combat where a combat is going to be in just a number of seconds. You probably just don't have time to do those sorts of things. So yeah, it sort of begs the question: do you need to have them included in combat? Really, do they need to be codified? Can you get away with not using them at all? I call going to the restroom thinking I had to go number 1 and find out it's number 2, a glitch. Okay. Action economy really defines the rest of the system. Yes, and we'll get to action economy in a second. Okay, let me get back over to where I was, because I kind of have jumped here, there, and everywhere a little bit. Let's go down here. Initiative. Now, I'm going to probably do this. How do I want to make this look? Does it really matter? When I think about D20 systems, almost all of them use initiative. Almost all of them use an initiative check. They don't necessarily use dexterity, though. That's the thing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change out some of this. I'm going to put here ability check. Ability modifier. We'll put ability modifier. And I probably need to space this a bit more. Is that enough space? Probably not. Do another one. That's better. Okay. All right. None of these images I'm worried about. They're not Wizards of the Coast. They're all good. What we'll do in the top here, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to put in, define it a bit more. Turn order. Order or initiative check. So it's nice and clear what we're talking about here. Very, very simple then. Okay. And then we're going to go down here a little bit. Initiative is a flat bonus, and what you actually roll depends on the situation. So not all systems use a dice roll to determine turn order. See, there's another thing. And actually that's probably something I should point out. So let's go to turn order, back to initiative here. Turn order, initiative, or initiative. Let's do that. Can I get this to go there? That's right. And then we'll go back a bit. So what I want to put in here is combat turn order can include many different role systems. Role systems can include So combat turn order can include. Is it include or use? Use. Many different rule systems. Now, the most common one is selecting a direction, going clockwise or anti-clockwise. So taking turns clockwise and anti-clockwise. So I use clockwise and anti-clockwise as turn order rather than a D&D initiative for 5e because ultimately it's just simple when it's a big group. It's just so much easier than trying to track who's going next if you just go around in a circle. Now I know a lot of people don't like that, but it's practicality. The reason for turn order, its only purpose to exist is not so that people get to roll dice. It's so that there's an order and you can control who goes first and who goes second, so you don't want to have everybody jumping in all at once. That's all it is. The other one is no dice roll and using, and as you had suggested, using flat flat modifiers. I think Ugly Widow had said a flat bonus. That's right, flat bonus. And using a flat bonus. So using a flat bonus. So for example, there is an initiative system that I used a while back, where what I would do is I'd get everybody to tell me what their dexterity, what their initiative modifier was. They would never roll dice, and I would place everybody into order. Because the funny thing about turn order is that really all you need to know is when is the Game Master's monsters going to go? Okay, when is the Game Master going to be doing their thing? Where in comparison to the players? So all I would do is I would get everybody to just rank themselves. And it really doesn't matter who in the player group goes first or second, ultimately. So what I would do is I'd rank everybody who was a +3 would go at the top. Okay, if you had a +4, you go obviously higher than that. I'd just from ascending to descending, whoever had the highest modifier for the initiative, or say dexterity modifier in this case, or whatever you're using. Maybe you're using a wisdom modifier. You could use a wisdom modifier for your initiative or your turn order if you really wanted to. And then what you do is you go all the +5s are in one place, and then the +4s, then +3s, then +2s, +1s. Of course, the Game Master or Dungeon Master would then place themselves in there, and all you needed to do was roll off between whoever they were competing with, and then you had determined your turn order. So it meant that I didn't need to have everybody roll initiative. Only one person or two people at the table would ever have to roll initiative against the Game Master, and all we needed to do was determine who rolled higher, and that would help determine where the Game Master would go in relation to all the player characters. It was never a particularly popular system that I put in place, but it was super easy to understand, and it was really easy to implement. And if you ever want to give it a go, I suggest give it a go, because it works well. It really does, particularly if you want to get your combat done fast. You want fast and furious rather than slow and pondering. Okay. Initiative as a flat bonus, and what you actually roll depends on the situation. Initiative bonus. Fred, have you ever played with combat mechanics for weapon degradation? No, I haven't. I am aware of initiative being based off dice. This sounds interesting. Players would need a repair or replace their weapon, plus using weapons to do things that would damage them in real world. Yep. Loudest declaration of initiative goes first. Loudest declaration of initiative goes first. Well, yeah, that could be another way. Here's another one, and I'll put it in. And I'll put it in here. Different dice rolls for initiative depending on the class. So what it would mean is if you were a wizard or a spellcaster, you would get a very small dice. You would get like a D4, because what you were doing was going to take a lot of time. You're casting a spell, so it was considered more complicated than swinging a sword, and so you maybe get a D4 or D6. Whereas if you were a martial character who was say swinging a blade, then maybe you would be using a 6-sided dice or an 8-sided dice or a 10-sided dice. Maybe the 8s and the 10s would be the dice you would use. And if you were somebody who didn't need to do that sort of thing, and you were, say, like a monk, and you were using unarmed strikes, then you'd use a D12, or you might even use a D20. So the end result is that the less components to what you're trying to do had the better chance of giving you a higher roll. Does that make sense? And I believe Mike Mills did present this concept a while back in terms of using different dice to determine whose initiative would be what. Now, his was really complicated because he would do it every single round. They would re-roll all these dice. I suggest don't bother with that. I would suggest everybody just rolls the dice. You know what your initiative dice is. When you roll it, if you're a wizard, you're going to be rolling a 4 or a 4-sided dice or a 6-sided dice, and if you're a martial, you're rolling an 8 or a 10, and if you're a monk who use unarmed strikes, then you'll be rolling a 12 or a 20, depending what you want it to be, and then that's it. So it means that those who should be moving sooner and faster, because they're doing less stuff, are more likely to be able to go first. It's an interesting concept. It does add a level of complexity that I don't personally like, but I know other people might prefer that. Do you know what I mean? Now, I'll tell you right now, that system is not something that Mike Mills came up with. It's not his own thing. It goes right back to Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. Okay? It was a system that was presented many, many years ago. So it's been floating around in the soup for a long time. Okay, right, let me just see if I can just keep moving myself forward here. I'm going to leave it like that, that's fine. I don't know that the turn order, types of actions are going to be a problem at all. This is Pathfinder. I'm leaving the Pathfinder image. So, your action, main act, bonus action, special act, I guess you could say that. I think is it special act or lesser act? It's move, positioning, interaction, small talk, small task, reaction, response. This is actually, I guess it's part of what we know, but reaction is actually interrupt. It's if you look at other systems, they refer to it as being an interruption. Interaction again, we used to call them free actions. Do you remember when we used to call the interaction a free action in Dungeons and Dragons? I remember them. I don't like the wording interaction. I like free action. It actually helps me separate things a lot more. I hate the wording bonus action. I've always despised it. It's caused me no end of strife. So I'm going to say here, minor swift, I think there's another word for it, swift, and bonus actions. Okay, so we're going to go here, I'm going to call it a minor action. Bonus action always, minor. I'm going to call that minor. That's a better wording for it. This, I'm going to call it the free action, because good Lord has always... Okay, free action. Something you can do for free. And then reaction, movement, interaction, free actions. Or interactions, I think that's what you call them. And then this is the interrupt. Reaction. Reaction and interrupt are, they're pretty much the same, but we're going to put interrupt. Interrupt. You tell me if you think interrupt or reaction is easier for you to understand. I know most of you are going to say reaction because you're used to 5e more than likely, but maneuvering. Okay, so I think interrupt is the better way to go. It's the same sort of thing. Interrupt. Reaction, response. Okay. I am pretty happy with that. What I need to do is I need to go through types of actions and just build them out a little bit, which I certainly want to do, but we need to keep going. And I'm response action. Yes, so response, I put the word response there, and I do believe that I have the word response here. Response, instant response too. So the word response is going in there. So yeah, I've got that ugly weirdo, not a problem. It's in there. I've been playing Vampire of the Masquerade and such lately, so I'm full of not D20 ideas. So ugly weirdo, throw those. So remember, I've played. If you don't remember, I have mentioned I've played Fate. You don't play Fate with normal 6-sided dice or with a D20 or a D10 or D12 or anything like that. The dice are cubes, but they've got plus and minus on them and blank sides. So I'm used to playing Fate as well. I have played the game. So by all means, present those concepts. Full round, standard action, move, swift, free, dagger bits. Standard action. Yeah, the full round action. This is where it would use up everything. I don't know if I want to go into that in too much detail. It was always a god-awful mechanic, the full round action. Do you remember the full round action? Like it was such a pile of shite. It's something that would never even get completed on your turn. You had to wait till everybody else had taken their turn as well. Everybody's turn had to roll round, and then it finally worked. But I think what your point is, that there are actions that take an entire round. So we're going to put full round. You've made your point. Full round is something that takes the player's turn to complete plus everyone else's turn at the table. Which is, it's an awful, oh, what am I done here? I've gone and opened up something I wasn't supposed to. Plus everyone else's at the table. It's a awful mechanic. I'm so glad that we don't have them. Else's. So let me go back to here and we will add in full round. And the best way to describe it is everyone's turn. Everyone's? Can I get everyone's in there? Every turn. What's the best one? Oh, how do I describe this? How do I describe it? Full round, the best way to describe it. I don't really want to make it too long. I want to keep it fairly simple in terms of concept. All turns. All turns, that's what I'll do. Unless somebody punches in something that would make more sense, I'll do that. As an idea from VTM, what's this? Or what are we going here? Lesser action. Okay, immediate immediate action, immediate action, I'm not sure, response action, minor action, I've got minor in there, half action, do you know, I remember coming across something that had a half action in it, and I was like, does that really make things simpler to understand? And it doesn't. The half action, which really is your bonus action, swift action, and minor action. They're essentially the same concept, but it's in there. Lesser action. Yes. We can describe them as so many different things, but they all do the same thing. Do you know, I think one of the great things that Pathfinder have done for 2nd edition is just saying all actions, everything that you do is an action. Everything you do is an action, and you get 3 of them. Now, I think 3 is too many, personally. I think that appeals to modern gamers who are used to doing a shitload of stuff in their turn. But I think it's brilliant because now it just means you don't have to worry about the types of actions. You don't have full rounds, you don't have actions, then minor or bonus, you don't have a movement action, you don't have a free action, you don't have an interrupt or reaction, you don't have any of that stuff. It's just everything's an action, right? For me, I would go down to just having 2 actions. So you could move twice, or you could attack twice. Or you could do an attack or something else that you might decide during your turn. And that's it. It keeps it super simple, speeds things along, but that's not really what this is about today. This is more about explaining these concepts to people. All turns taken. All turns. Okay, I think that's fine. Right, attack. So attack types: melee weapon, ranged weapon, throw-in weapon, and unarmed strikes. That's perfectly fine. Now, this is from the video game. I'm trying to remember the video game art. It was probably licensed to Wizards of the Coast. I wonder who actually owns the rights to that now. Because attack types is fine as it is. I can just take that attack types. But it's in current form. It's perfect. I don't have to do anything with that. I just need to go into a bit more detail about what that looks like. What do you got here? What of instead of bonus action we just use interaction? You interact with your potion of healing. Yes, I suppose you could. Again, this is. I mean, certainly, it's this whole program is designed to put forward different ideas. I also don't want to hard concrete. We're not building a rule system today. Today is just a class, with the intention is. So, what I would do is once this is all done, is I would present this as a presentation. The slides would turn into a presentation. I would go through my notes and explain stuff to people so they've got a pretty good idea of basic combat mechanics. And then I would demonstrate, in the past I've done 5e, done Dungeons & Dragons 5e, but maybe I've played 4e, so I could demonstrate Dungeons & Dragons 4e, I could demonstrate Dungeons & Dragons 3.5, I could demonstrate Star Wars Saga, the role-playing game, which I will do. I can demonstrate Hero Quest, because I know how to play Hero Quest. Once I figure out everything properly for Dark Heresy, I can demonstrate that as part of this. I can demonstrate Pathfinder when the Pathfinder 2nd edition core rulebook arrives here. So that's what this program is essentially going to be targeted at. Ultimately, in the end, is a presentation followed by a demonstration of a specific game system, and changing that game system from week to week or month to month. You know, it might take me a month to get through their system before we move on to the next one. I like the idea of doing something like that. It just means that we're a bit more versatile in what's happening. Okay, I don't know what to do with this image. So because I'm pretty sure it's probably licensed to Wizards of the Coast, because they own Dungeons and Dragons, and it's the Dungeons and Dragons video game image. It probably belongs to them. Hang on. Okay, splitting your bonus to make more rolls. Great minds think alike, and so do we apparently. Yeah. Good. Sorry, cooking at the same time. You don't have to be sorry, Mac. Cook away. You got to get that stuff done. It's important. Instead of a +5 to your check, make 2 checks at +2. Yes, or use a re-roll system. You can the advantage disadvantages is a good system. It's simple. If you don't like that, then you're going to use +1s and 2s. What of the state of a bonus action we just did? Okay, we've done that. Any activity that consumes your total concentration is a full round. So what you've actually just said there, Ugly Weirdo, is a very good point, and you've worded it perfectly. Like, I couldn't have worded it better, Ugly Weirdo. So I'm going to go straight to activity. It's not a question mark, that's exactly what it is. So we're going to add that in without the formatting. Activity that consumes your total concentration is a concentration and uses all of your available action types is a full round. So I think that's what it is. That's probably a better description of it. Cool. That's done. Well done. That was nicely said. That got it nailed down. Cool. Pathfinder 2e has a lot of different kinds of actions with rules of their own. Now, I haven't had a chance to see Pathfinder 2e. I like the idea. People keep talking about this 3-action economy, but until I see the system, I can't make a good assessment of what it's like. I think for me, if I was to build a system, it would have a 2-action system. So you get 2 actions, and with those 2 actions, you can cast a spell, you can make an attack, you can move, and then you can do something else, which is really up to whatever your imagination is. And then we might have something that is a free action, like one thing you can do for free. And we have like a list of potential things that might be. I dislike interaction, the interrupt and reaction, things that you do on somebody else's turn, because it's a giant pile of poo-poos, if you ask me. It slows the game down, and it negates other people's actions. Like, you cast a spell and somebody can stop it. Yeah, there's tactical sides beside it, but yeah, I don't know. So I think a design decision has to be made soon. Explicit rules with well-defined boundaries, or a less precise narrative-based philosophy. So Ugly Weirdo, that's what I'm trying to do tomorrow, is to build a game system that is so basic that you can play it narratively. It doesn't have a lot of coding in it. There's not a lot of codification, and so it leaves it very much up to the game master to do a lot of the stuff. And I like that way of approaching it. I know it's not a cup of tea for everybody, but I still think it's a good move. So, melee attack spells, ranged attack spells, melee saving throw spells, ranged saving throw spells, automatic. I think all systems tend to have some sort of save or saving throw, and all systems tend to have an attack, and there's usually something you can do that's automatic. So I don't think I need to play with that. The artwork belongs to whom, though? I think the artwork does not belong to... Yeah, it'll... I'm going to take this out. I'll replace it with something else. I'll find something cool. Copy. And we'll go in here. I'll put that in there. It's alright. I will put some fun pictures in there, people. Just not those ones. So I'm pretty sure they belong to Wizards of the Coast. And as I've said before, I'm not using their fan content policy as much as I can. Certainly won't be using the Creative Commons or the OGL. We'll wait until that debacle turns into a mess when they release their new game system, which I'm sure is going to be another kettle of nonsense, but here we go. Seriously. There we go. That's good. Now, dash. So dash is just another terminology for run. That's really all it is. So movement. Dash or run. Because that's why I picked the image of dash from the movie. Dash or run. Run or dash. Run or dash. Dash or run. Dash or run. Dash or run. Run or dash. Run or dash. We'll go capital, shall we? I'll make sure I switch this over to run. Run or dash. Okay. We'll come back to that. Run or dash. Dash. Here we go. Alright, it's the top of the hour. I should probably take a break and come back to this. So, as I'm working through this, disengage. Disengage is probably one of... It's a pet peeve of mine. And the only reason I have a pet peeve with disengage as an action in combat is because of opportunity attacks. Because opportunity attacks are built into the system as a definitive. And having spent quite a lot of my life involved in martial arts and fighting, the concept of trying to codify opportunity attacks into a game system is just awful. It's been there for a long time. It's not like it's a new thing. It's been around ages. It's been there since Gary Gygax. Even Gary Gygax talked about opportunity attacks or attacks of opportunity, or they might get an attack if you move away. And I think it's primarily there because the people designing Dungeons and Dragons didn't understand combat fully. And once you've actually done real combat, or you've trained for real combat, you understand the reality a bit more. Doesn't work quite the way people think it does. So yes, sprint. Thank you. That's a good point. Sprint. I like that. Run, sprint, dash. I'm going to put run and dash, and I will put sprint in here as well. Sprint or dash. Okay. Nice. That was a good addition. So I think a design... We've already done that. I think in addition to 2 actions, maybe some action don't actually expend a full action. A point score, most actions take 1, where some... Now what you're trying to do, Mac, I understand what you're trying to do there, but that's building a whole complex system. And what I'm not trying to do for this is to do that today. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to define what these things are for people, so it's a bit easier for them to understand, whatever they're playing. But sprint is basically dash, and sprint is basically running. So absolutely, it's a good addition. So what I want to do here is disengage. I want to type in here hashtag. Yeah, no, by the way, Mac, I'm not giving you a hard time or anything like that. I've got to keep my design focus on what I'm trying to do in line, otherwise I'll get lost. Here we go. So I want to ask you a question, those of you who are here. What is your opinion of disengage action to avoid opportunity attacks. That's my question to you. Now, I'm sure some of you will like them, some of you won't. But one of the things that I dislike about the disengage action is basically disengage says now I can walk completely around the battlefield. I can walk between two enemies. Walking between two enemies either side of you is the worst thing you can do in a fight. Like, that's the one thing you don't do. When you get taught to fight, whether it's with weapons or unarmed, you never do that. Not unless you want your ass to be handed to you. So I'm going to put that forward to you as a question. And then I'm going to come back and we're going to continue with this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to give you the break. So Arnold Schwarzenegger will look after you. I will be back in less than 5 while I go use the toilet. Okay, heading back in here. Have we got some nice contentious discussions around the disengage and the and the opportunity attack? Where am I supposed to be? Roughly about there, I think. Okay. Oh, right. I need water, and then I'm going to need a lozenge. And a lozenge. More water first, maybe. Alright, let's switch on back to where our workstation is. Here we go. And this is disengage, which is disengage, retreat. See, disengage in D&D 5e isn't used to retreat though. It feels like disengage almost falls into the category of tumble. What do you got here? What do you got here, Mac? Disengage is a necessary evil to neutralize the opportunity attack. So I hate it. Yep, fair enough. I despise the opportunity attack in the first place. Just because, you know, one of the things we used to get taught when I was training in the martial arts is moving back out of range does not mean the enemy can attack you. It actually makes it more difficult. But if you just walk backwards, okay, or shuffle backwards, which is usually what you're told to do, and you're facing forwards, this is the most sensible way to approach moving out of combat. and you get taught how to do it quickly. Over time, they train you so that you can move backwards as fast as you can move forwards. Or at least you can move backwards as fast as it would take you to turn around and run forwards away from the enemy, so that you can get yourself clear. Okay? This is something that everybody who ever fights ever gets taught how to do when you're up close. It doesn't matter what martial arts you're involved in, whether you're boxing or anything like that. This is how you approach things. You never turn your back to anybody. You always back up looking at them the whole time. And you get taught to do it quickly. This is why you train. So the opportunity attack doesn't make sense at all. What you will find as a general rule is an untrained person, what they will do is they will turn around their back to the person and they will run. And that's where they get into trouble. But your adventurers are not novices. Okay? Whatever they've been doing, they've been training for a long time. They should never even have to have a feat or some other special ability or a class feature to understand this stuff, because it's absolutely 101 training. What is a problem is when you try to move up to somebody and past them. Moving past somebody when you're very close is a problem. If you're keeping your distance and you're moving around them, it usually doesn't help you very much, because they can just change their position quite easily. And it actually requires more energy for you to go around them than it takes for them to pivot on the spot. So the whole opportunity attack doesn't make sense. But of course, if you try to pick something up and it's in front of them and you're leaning down, of course you're going to get yourself into trouble. Get kicked in the head, get hit from above, whatever. So your 5e opportunity attacks just don't make sense. And then 3.5 was just too much. So I always feel like there got to be a better way of doing it. And I haven't ever figured out how to do opportunity attacks or attacks of opportunity or interruption attacks in a game system without them just not making sense. They always seem to come off half pie nonsense. And then of course we have the disengage to deal with that. It's yeah. So I get your frustration with it existing in the first place, Mac. The disengage. Disengage is part of another activity, or it eats your whole action. Well, it could. So disengaging usually doesn't take as much time as you might think. If you do it for real, it usually doesn't take that long. A disengage action, a disengage attack that is not meant to cause damage. It is meant to give you an opening to distance yourself from the enemy, maybe. So what you're talking about here, Pale Rider, is something else. So there was a technique we used to use, and I'm sure it's taught everywhere. And that is, what you would do is you would fall back. You wouldn't fall back that far, but you would fall back, and the intention is to have the person who you were fighting pursue you. So they would move forwards, and as they move forwards, you would lunge forward as they were using their momentum to come forwards towards you. You would push your weight back towards them with a kick or a blow or a weapon, because we used to fight with weapons as well. And of course, they would wind up taking even more injuries from your blow. Or they would be knocked back even further because of the sheer force. Their movement going one way and your movement coming into them resulted in, bam, they would get knocked back or get hurt bad. Okay, that was sort of like a retreat and counterattack, or fall back and counterattack. Really, really nasty technique and very easy to fall for. It's very easy to fall for it. Anyway, let me see what else we got here. Reposition combat maneuvers instead of disengage. It's simple and elegant. Maybe. And instead of opportunity attacks, have a potential contest between action added to your 2-action economy. We're really getting into very complicated stuff here now. We're going to come back to this disengage thing. What did I want to say about disengage? There was something. Disengage, retreat. Disengage, retreat. What's a better word for describing it? Disengage or retreat? because it's not really disengaging, and you're not necessarily using it to as it's worded in 5e. It's really something else. It actually falls under. You're right. It falls under maneuvers, but it also falls under tumbling. Because one of the things we were taught is it was possible to tumble past somebody if you were really quick and they were really slow and you were goddamn lucky. But it's not a great maneuver, but it can be done. Because disengage is kind of like the old concept of the tumble, right? From 3.5. So apparently you would tumble out of combat, which has got a whole set of other problems. I don't know what else to say with this. I'm going to leave it for now. I don't need to worry about the artwork. I don't know what to do with this right now. I'm going to come back to this. Dodge, though, we can do something with. Dodge, I can do something with. Dodge, evade, block, full defense. Dodge is probably the best word to describe it as. Dodge, evade, block is kind of a different thing again. Full defense is slightly different, but they all fall under the same sort of bracket. So I'm going to leave dodge as. The image is fine. I'll come back to that. I'll talk a bit more about that a bit more, I guess. Help. Help is, I think, the best description of help is teamwork. Like, I can't think of a word that passed across the concept better than the word teamwork. Teamwork, help, aid, or assistance. Really, that's what we're talking about here. So I'm going to leave that as is, and I'll put that there. We need to go into a bit more detail about these concepts, but we're doing all right. We're almost to the bottom there, at least on the slide. Okay, the image is Wizards of the Coast. I remember now. This is definitely not something I can use. I'm going to get rid of it. It's actually from the Young Adventurers guides. For those of you who are curious, that's image is from there. Help. Probably the most underutilized thing is the concept of help. Now, I'm not going to call it help. I'm going to call it teamwork. Teamwork. I think that's a much better description of what we're dealing with here. And I'm not referring to group checks from Dungeons and Dragons. Okay. Search. Let's go here. Whoops, that's not the right thing. There we go. All right. Back to the chat. Instead of opportunity to have a potential contest, competition, the possibility of an extra adds risk and reward. Pushing, more of a push with weapon and foot. Sweep as a Now sweeping the foot in martial arts, or sweeping the leg when you're not using your foot to do so or whatever, and you're using a weapon, say to sweep the leg to knock them over, is a very common technique. Unbalancing your enemy is like very, very important. And you make a good point. It begs the question whether I need to have a slide that says counterattack, because counterattacks are probably a big factor. We don't see counterattacks in the games outside of opportunity attacks. Almost always when you see a game system, it's usually around an opportunity attack or an attack of opportunity, but counterattacks aren't something that are very common. And the reason being is they're hard to build into the game. I guess the best example of counterattack in Dungeons and Dragons 5e and maybe other systems is the ready to action, which is a giant mess to contend with, frankly. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to take something here and I'm going to copy it, and I'm going to make a slide for it. So I'm going to copy this slide. No, apparently I can't copy the slide. Copy the slide. And we'll add in a slide here. Because what we've been doing is we've been talking about counterattacking. Counterattacking is probably something I need to put into the next week's program. So counterattack is something I need to discuss next week. So we won't put it here because we wind up going into opportunity attacks, which is next week as well, if I remember right, or something like that. The ready to action. So yes, okay, I got distracted a little bit. Okay, so we'll deal with counterattacking and more of the opportunity attack stuff next week. Search. Detecting something hidden, investigation checks. It all kind of works. This is Pathfinder for sure. I recognize the artwork. Use an object. I don't think we need to change that. Searching. No. Searching. There we go. And we'll move that across. And I will leave that for now. Using an object, the image is not going to be a problem because it's asterisks. And using an object in 5e is such a giant pain in the butt. It really is. And the way that it's used in 5e is awful. I can't think of a system that is more confusing at times for people. The number of years I've tried to explain it to people and it's confusing. I'm getting rid of this image. This is definitely Wizards of the Coast. And the reason being is, going back to, if you draw your weapon and then you want to draw a separate weapon, you have to have a feat. And yet drawing a weapon, which is actually pretty quick to do, is considered using an object. So if you decide you want to draw two weapons in the same turn, you've literally got to have a feat to do that. And they're getting rid of that concept. That's going to be the way of the dodo for sure. I realise this. So all of the miscellaneous recommendations, I don't have to change any of this, which is great. I'm happy. But a lot of this is just painful. Free actions, just list them as free actions and you get to do one of them and that's it. And, because you're having to use your entire action to use to pull a lever. Like, how long does it take to pull a lever? So there's a lot of things that action economy is one of those. Probably the most annoying aspects of combat is action economy. If you play a game that doesn't have action economy, and I know you're probably thinking, how could that possibly exist? They do exist. And they work quite well. So we won't need 5e in terms of a book to refer to right now. Yeah, I was heading down that. I started that conversation as well, and it all started with disengage, and it's because disengage just opens up a whole can of worms, really, isn't it? So, collaborative activities where you give part of your action economy to another player is encompassed by help, teamwork, but it has a rule type vibe. It does have a rules type vibe. Yeah, it does. Contrivance to exit. No clue how to make that easier to say than that. Disengage is probably the best word. Darn them. Separate. Mac, this is why I left disengage. I didn't know what else to say. It doesn't really communicate what I'm trying to get across, but I don't know what else to do with it right now. Spin the jaw is the only real world combat and maneuver. I can understand quick draw. I may be able to pull a sword out of its scabbard, but that isn't going to help me hold it properly or ready it for combat. Fred, with your background in martial arts, You would either love or hate the martial arts system in Palladium's Ninja and Super Spice. So AJ Pickett has told me about Palladium and their stuff, and he started with Palladium, but he said a lot of their stuff is a giant pain in the butt. As a result of that, I've never ever touched Palladium, because AJ always paints a picture that I just don't want to have to contend with. Okay, so we're going to wind back the clock a little bit. I've obviously run out of a lot of time to get all of this done, to get through everything that I want to. But we're going to start with the Unholy Dungeons & Dragons 4E book. And we're going to look at some of the things they did here. I'm not saying we're going to duplicate them here. I'm just going to see if there's stuff here that we can sort of port over that will help people understand stuff. That's really all I'm trying to do. So, opening the book, 264. I'm going to be going to 3.5 eventually too, by the way. And when the Advanced Dungeons & Dragons books show up, I'll be going over that as well. So, first off, combat sequence, turn order, round. So, in 4E, combat sequences basically run exactly the same. It's the same system. You have an initiative. Your initiative is based off your dexterity modifier, and whoever's got the higher number goes first. And then, of course, you've got the unholy surprise round nonsense that people get confused about. And for obviously good reasons. The biggest problem around surprise is not having a particularly well-defined explanation for stealth, hiding, hidden, invisibility in Dungeons & Dragons 5e. Other systems did it slightly better. 5e is all over the place. You can never make a perfect system for that in the first place, but yeah. So one of the things I want to probably point out with that, let's go back to initiative again. Sorry if we're going back to the beginning rather than forward with stuff. Normally the Game Master, we're going to put Game Master here. Master opens a combat encounter with a description of what monster is threatening the characters, and then asks for an initiative roll, or roll to determine turn order. Oh, it's in capitals. Initiative roll to determine turn order. Okay. So initiative rolls. Initiative rolls are a special ability check. That is a result of adding your dexterity modifier. And in fact, we're not going to say dexterity, we're just going to say ability. Adding a ability or attribute. Attribute modifier to a d20 dice roll. Okay. Attribute. All the player characters and monsters initiative rolls are placed in order of highest to lowest, with the highest initiative going first in combat. This is most D20 systems. Anyone surprised doesn't get to act or take a turn in the first round, and that's the simplest way to describe it. Do you know? I don't know if you guys have ever noticed, but have you noticed that sometimes people get confused when they are supposed to actually take a turn? Like when there's something happens, like there's going to be a fight. Something's happened, there's going to be a fight, you roll initiative, and you get this weird thing where whoever initiated the battle, whether it be the monsters attacked the player characters, or one of the players drew their sword or said, I'm going to cast fireball, or they drew their sword and attacked somebody. But they don't get to go first because they rolled low with their initiative or their turn order. And so you wind up with them being the one who initiated something, whether it be the monsters or player characters, but they wind up going, somewhere down the list in the turn order. Don't do that. The easiest way to get around that bollocks is to state that whoever initiates the battle, whoever initiated the battle in the first place, whoever stated the thing that initiated the whole thing, they take their turn first. You roll initiative and you put it into order, or you create your turn order, and then once you've done that, if that person is lower down the initiative, don't worry about it. Don't worry about their position on the first turn. They go first because whoever it was, whether it be the monsters or the a player character, they initiated the first strike, and that's what you do for the first round. And then you start using your proper turn order. After that, it's just about following that order, and you just it's the easiest way to deal with this. And people don't do this. I've seen people run into this problem. Even at my own home group, seem to run into this problem from time to time. Like the monk initiated a blow and tried to punch somebody, but they rolled really low, so they don't get to go first, or something like that. And it's like, no, the narrative got broken somehow. I've never once ever read even a word of 4E. Don't worry about it. You don't have to read any of it. I'm going to read most of it. I'm not going to read it out to you. The old school red box had 2 disengage maneuvers. A fighting retreat and a full retreat. Fighting retreat just cuts your movement to half, and the full retreat gives bonuses to the attackers. Okay. Alright. Interesting, Pale Rider. My home group are leaning more towards basic D&D more and more every single day, but we're not going to be playing basic D&D. We'll probably wind up playing whatever the heck I wind up creating, provided they are happy with it. It'll get modified a lot. So this is probably the best way to describe things, and this is probably how it should be done, is whoever initiates goes first, you roll initiative, and everybody else goes in the order based off that. And that's it. It's as simple as that. I think we've covered that a lot. I don't need to do that. Main. All right, so types of attacks. Types of attacks. So actually what I want to mention here is I want to mention dexterity and wisdom, because some systems don't use dexterity modifiers or agility. Dexterity or wisdom. As in, wisdom is the thing that lets you determine that there's something up, rather than speed of muscle. Now, I know a few of you are probably wondering, why would you ever use wisdom to determine your initiative? Well, why not? If anything, I always found that a fight is won before the fight starts, simply by somebody realizing there's something going on. And whoever knows that there's something going on and can read body language well is usually the one who's going to do a lot better than somebody else. They're usually going to get to act first. Do you know what I mean? It's not just muscle speed. Okay. So, main actions, types of actions. Let's have a look at types of actions now. Types of actions. We have the full round action, and we didn't have that in 4E. We had standard action, move action, minor action, and free action. All of these were broken up into bits and pieces, so they did different things. What you do find is you don't really see. They had the immediate action, which was yet again more confusing. But let me see if I can break that down into here in some way. Movement. So let's go moving action. Ability to change position on the battlefield, like by walking, running, flying, crawling, swimming, and climbing. That kind of covers everything we needed to have there. I don't think there's anything new. The bonus action or minor action was 4E. This represents okay, examples. Pouch. Minor actions were confusing as in this game. Now, what have I got here? Is a special action linked to an ability, spell, or other feature that states it is different from your main action. And then actually in 4E, minor actions would be very simple tasks. Like an example would be pulling an item from your pouch or a sheath, or opening a door. So the definition was very different. So special or what would be a better word? Mundane, simple task, a special action, or simple task. Linked to an ability, spell, sort of what would be a mundane act, a quick task or other feature that states it is different from the main action. Yeah, that's really what it is. And then free actions were really in 4E, it was about dropping a held item. So that would be like, these are just suggestions for what counts as a free action. Might be drop an item, weapon, speak a few words, open a door, what else is there? Letting go, yes, letting go of a grabbed creature. These are things that supposedly you can do very quickly. And I'm going to put a question mark because we're going to go back to this. Scrabs, how's it going? Is it Scabs? Scabs, hello Scabs. Whoops. True. Right, so let's do that and then... here we go. So I am doing my best to pull all these bits and pieces together. Standard actions. Okay. Standard actions, your main action is a thing you can do with wide possibilities. These can include attacking, casting spell, maneuvering, using powers, what else was there? What's the other one? Sheesh, I can't remember. I'm not going to worry about it. I'm going to just leave it for now. It's not as important as I would have hoped. We'll come back to that because there's so many things that fall under the action. Right, so next. I'm not talking about opportunity attacks today. We've got the interrupt. The interrupt can be, interrupt or reaction is an instant response to a trigger of some kind, which can occur on the creature's turn or someone else's. This might be a opportunity attack when a creature makes themselves vulnerable. Vulnerable, is that right? Vulnerable. Vulnerable. Come on, Fred. Vulnerable. Thank you. All right. Thank you for that. And opportunity. Okay. On vulnerable. So opportunity attacks would be one of those. A reaction, an interrupt. Preparing to make an attack. To make an attack or do something. Could be anything, could be run away. I think that's got that down for this bit. Next. We don't need to talk about that. We don't need to talk about that. Substituting actions, end of your turn, saving throws, checking actions spent. Right. So, the thing that I probably need to say about types of actions, and I didn't say this before, and that is do I want to say this? No, I don't. I don't know what I don't know how to word this in a way that's going to work, because there's so much variation out there. You know, some systems allow for different stuff going on, and so it's going to be hard to communicate this. How many of a different type of action do you get? And it depends on the rule system. But usually just one. Okay, it depends on the rule system. I think that usually get. Okay, so that's what I was trying to say. I guess that's what I'm trying to communicate here. I would put opening a door as a full action in some situations, because you are fully committed to that action. Maybe define open. So one of the reasons why I've placed opening a door as a free action. Suggestions for what counts might. Suggestions for what might count as a free action. This is not defined that this is it, because depending on the system you're playing, opening a door could be a free action. It might be classified as a minor action. It could be classified as an action, and this might be based on the size of the door and just how difficult it is to open. So when I put it under free action, I only put it under there as it's a suggestion for what might count as. This is not definitive. This list that I have made here is not the be and end all. It is simply an open statement, because a lot of systems allow for it to be done as a free action, not necessarily a minor action or as a full round action, or even an action. So I'm just leaving the concept very open for that. Okay, so next, attacks. I don't need to go into that too much. That's all good. Sweet with that. Attack types: melee, ranged, close, area attacks. I'm doing that and I'm talking about area stuff in spellcasting and magic, so that's all right. We can leave that. Choosing targets, line of sight, range, defense, armor. Am I talking about armor? I've already talked about armor class in basic mechanics, so I don't need to go back to defense and armor. Attack rolls, we've already kind of done that already before in the other one, so that's fine. Damage, resistance, vulnerability, conditions. Choosing damage, criticals, attack modifiers, cover and concealment. Now, cover is coming up next week, so don't need to cover it here. So cover and concealment is done later. Tactical, speed, diagonal movement, which is flanking. Flanking, I think we're going to go into advanced, so I'll put that into next week if it hasn't already been there. Falling, doubling movement, pushing, sliding, pushing, teleportation, phasing, action points, aiding another. So aiding another. So this is under the help and teamwork sort of stuff. Bull rush and charging. Bull rush and charging was a thing in 4E, wasn't it? The coup de grace. Oh, God, that's right. We had the coup de grace. We had crawling, delay, escape. There were a few. I had forgotten how many. Grabbing, which was the grapple. Ready in action. Shift, squeeze, stand up. Total defense. Total defense. I'd forgotten. Full defense and total defense. There was, wasn't there? There was total defense as well. What's that, Mac? Cool idea. Right. Ugly Weirdo. I went from Advanced D&D to 5e with 5+ years in between. So I imagine, Mac, that you probably looked at 5e and thought, oh, gee, that's simple-ish, kind of, followed by, oh my, there's a lot missing. How do they fill out those gaps? Oh, they left it to me. Thank God I've got lots of experience. All right. So I'm just trying to decide how I want to deal with aid. I want to talk about teamwork. So we're going to skip a little bit here. Because attack types, if we look at attack types, melee weapon attacks are made at close quarters with weapons, with swords, axes, mace, and spear. So that's pretty simple. It doesn't matter what system it is. It's an easy concept. Ranged weapon attacks are made at short range or long range with bows, crossbows, slings, and guns. Nice and easy to understand. Thrown weapon attacks are made at short range with dagger, hand axe, javelin, light hammer, and nets. And I didn't include spear, but I can put spear in there. Spear nets. Unarmed strikes are made at close quarters with fist, feet, elbows, knee, and head. Okay. Nice and simple. I don't know that I think I have to do anything with any of that, so I'm not going to worry about it. But I want to jump to teamwork, which is odd, right? I'm out of place because I haven't gone through casting a spell. I don't know that I need to do anything with casting a spell, though. I mean, a lot of the things that I'm highlighting here and how they work are related to Dungeons & Dragons 5e for sure. But the problem with casting a spell is, like, every system is going to have a slightly different name for their spells and how they work, and whether it's a saving throw, whether it's attack roll, whether it's automatic success. So I don't know that I can do very much with this. I'm going to leave this whole section. I'm going to leave it alone. Movement, I need to come back to. I'll deal with that. But teamwork. Help or aid requires you use... Now... Helping or aiding something is usually going to burn up like your action, your main action. It's going to probably get burnt up, no matter what your system is. Because I know in 4E it was considered a standard action. If you were aiding somebody in older versions of D&D, it was kind of the same sort of thing. It kind of progresses into every D20 system there is. And but what I want to do is I need to change the way I've worded this, because I've referred to advantage where I actually need to broaden that out a bit. So what I will do is help or aid requires you use your action usually so the character or monster can help, assist. I'm going to say, instead of aid, assist another creature's completion of a task by granting them granting them advantage, a re-roll on dice, or a numerical bonus on the next ability or or attack dice roll test. Okay, so that's what I'm trying to say here. There's a lot being said in that one sentence though. Can I break that up into pieces? Help or aid requires you use your action, usually so the main monster or creature can assist another creature's completion of a task. Teamwork mechanics. Might grant characters or monsters advantage, a reroll on dice, or a numerical bonus on the next ability or attack dice roll test. Now there's an older mechanic. So we've got a few people here who've played Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. So you will be familiar with the stacking of ability scores or attribute scores. Now that's a very old mechanic. It's like a dice roll challenge, absolutely. So who is it? So Mac, you'll be probably familiar with this from Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. I'm going to mention this because it's actually a mechanic that I use still, and that is teamwork could allow for automatic success if the game master thinks it's appropriate. And then the next one is player character ability or attribute scores can be added together and compared with a large target number to complete a task or challenge. And so basically this is the best example, and I've used this before and you've probably come across it before, and that is the situation where you're in a you're trying to get into a castle, and there's a portcullis and it's really heavy, and you can't get to the mechanism that would allow you to open the portcullis so you can get into the castle. You can't climb over the walls for whatever reason, okay? Maybe you just can't throw the grappling hook high enough. The walls are just too high. And so what you wind up doing is you want to try and lift the portcullis up because it hasn't been locked into place. You find the portcullis is down, but it's not locked in place. So you've got to try and lift it up. Now, one person making a dice roll makes no sense that would be possible, even if they're super strong. So what you do is you get the entire party together to lift the portcullis. And what they did in older versions of the game is they would have a DC or a target number that was quite high. It might be 40 or 50, and that's what you had to achieve. And the only way to be successful in this example is around a strength check or a strength dice roll, okay? And so what you would do is you would not roll the dice, you would take your strength score instead, assuming that that was the best that you could do on average in any, given that you had plenty of time. It's not like passive perception. It's not like a passive check. It's not like taking 10 or taking 20. It's just, this is the score that this is what you're going to get. So if you've got a strength of 10 and somebody else has got a strength of 15, you would add those together along with everybody else who took part in trying to lift the portcullis. And if it got to the target number that the game master or dungeon master had, then your team was successful in lifting the portcullis. So when these challenges came forward, it was to the benefit of your group for everybody to engage in that task. And it really, what it did is represent that you had to all work together to get past the portcullis. Now, if your team or your group or your party wasn't big enough to be able to get 40 or 50, combining all of your strength scores, then you wouldn't lift the portcullis. And so you would have to find an alternative, like maybe you pull out your vial of acid and eat your way in and have it eat through the bars so you can break them open. So Mac and a few others, you might be familiar with this. So that is a teamwork mechanic that I have mentioned before. It's from an older version of D&D, and it's a very good system because it doesn't have the vagaries of dice randomization. Dice randomization is fun, but if you're trying to lift up a portcullis so they can move forwards, it's not such a great thing. And of course, there's always an alternative they can take, but what it does is it points out that even the wizard who's not very strong may still be able to contribute to the success of that task. So player character, ability or attribute scores can be added together and compared with a large target number to complete a task or challenge. And that is teamwork, help, aid, and assist. And I think that's where I want to leave that for today, because I've run out of time. I should be going to work. We will return to this in the future, and our discussions around game mechanics and sort of what they look like, and I will be doing another live stream as it happens tomorrow, probably a very long one. But I will be writing a tabletop RPG with the intention that you can take it and do whatever the heck you like with it. Anyway, we have done pretty well. I'm going to go to the chat, and I'm going to have a look at what people have mentioned. What is missing from role-playing game combat? 17 votes. Finishing moves, 24%. Fatalities, 18%. I deliberately did that because that's Mortal Kombat, right? Blocking, 29%. We don't see a lot of blocking in our role-playing games. You might have a parry, but very few things have parry. Magic mishaps, 29%. So we've got a lot of people. It's just kind of a big spread there. Interesting. Let's put that up there. Okay. And with any luck, the Advanced Dungeons & Dragons books will show up reasonably soon. But until that time, we will continue making a tabletop role-playing game tomorrow. It'll be 10 a.m. New Zealand, and I will post that when I can. So I just want to say thank you to all of my patrons who support me on Patreon so that I can keep doing this sort of thing. I want to say thank you to everybody who took part in the live stream today, either in the poll or commented and gave me some critique during this live stream. I do appreciate it. It makes a big difference when people are there so that I don't feel like I'm just talking to myself for 2 hours. And I want to say thank you to everybody who just watched the live stream. I do appreciate it. And or watch the replays. Thank you for watching my edited videos, and yes, I finally put out a shorts video. It's been a while. You'll see a few more. I will probably be a bit sporadic around it because I've got way too much going on, but I'll do my best. And yes, probably miniatures because that's something that I like, and I've got a few of them, so that kind of helps as well. So wherever you are in the world, whether it be the morning, the afternoon, the night, or the wee early morning, please look after yourself, your family, and your friends. Be nice to your neighbours. And hey, till next time, keep rolling those 20s. Or you can roll whatever dice you like if you're playing a different system. So I did include numerical bonuses, Pale Rider, into the teamwork section. I did actually mention that.